There was a time, long ago, when the land of Egypt was full of people who did not belong to it. They were the children of Israel, and they had grown in number, quietly, steadily, like seeds in the soil. But a new king rose over Egypt, and he did not remember them. He did not remember Joseph. He did not remember kindness. Instead, he saw them with fear. "They are too many," he said softly to himself. "They are becoming too strong." And so he made their lives heavy. He placed burdens on their backs. He made them work under the heat of the sun. He turned their days into long hours of labor. Yet still they grew, and fear turned into something darker. The king gave a command, cold and sharp. Every son that is born must be thrown into the river. In a quiet home, away from the noise of the palace, a woman held her newborn child close to her chest. He was small, fragile, and deeply loved. She looked at him, and something in her heart whispered, "This child is special." So she hid him. For days, then weeks, then months. Every cry was softened, every sound was watched. She lived between love and fear. But there came a day when she could hide him no longer. And so, with trembling hands, she made a small basket. She wove it carefully, lined it gently, and placed her baby inside. The river flowed quietly beside her. She knelt down, held him close one last time, and then she let go. The basket touched the water and began to drift, not lost, but carried. Nearby, a young girl stood watching. She did not move, she did not speak. She only watched as the river carried her baby brother. And then, footsteps approached, soft, royal, unfamiliar. It was the daughter of Pharaoh. She came to the river surrounded by her servants, and as she walked along the edge, she saw it, a small basket resting among the reeds. "Bring it to me," she said. They placed it in her hands. She opened it slowly, and inside, a baby, crying. Small hands reaching, eyes searching, and in that moment, her heart softened. "This is one of the Hebrew children," she whispered. Then suddenly, a small voice spoke from nearby. "Shall I go and find someone to nurse the child for you?" It was the young girl stepping forward with quiet courage. Pharaoh's daughter looked at her and nodded. "Yes, go." And the girl ran, not far, only back home, to their mother. And so, the one who had let go was given the chance to hold him again. "Take this child," Pharaoh's daughter said gently, "and care for him, and I will pay you." And the mother held her baby once more, not in fear this time, but in quiet gratitude. Time passed, the child grew, and when the day came, he was brought back to the palace. Pharaoh's daughter received him as her own. She gave him a name, Moses, for I drew him out of the water. And so Moses grew, not in the fields, but in the palace. He wore fine clothes, walked through grand halls, learned the ways of Egypt, yet somewhere deep inside him, there was a quiet knowing, a whisper that never left. One day, when he had grown into a man, he walked beyond the palace walls. He went out to see the people, his people, and what he saw was pain. A man beaten under the weight of another's hand, a Hebrew struck by an Egyptian. Moses stood still. His heart began to race, his chest tightened, and something inside him rose. He looked around, no one, and in a moment that came too fast, Too strong, he stepped forward, and the man fell. The sand covered what had happened. Silence returned. The next day, Moses walked out again, but this time it was not an Egyptian he saw. It was two Hebrews fighting. "Why do you strike your brother?" he asked. But the man turned to him, eyes sharp, voice cutting. "Who made you ruler over us?" And then the words that changed everything. "Will you kill me as you killed the Egyptian?" Moses froze. The moment he thought was hidden was no longer hidden. The truth had surfaced, and fear found him. The news reached Pharaoh, and his anger was swift. He sought Moses, not to speak, but to destroy. So Moses left. He did not look back. He walked away from the palace, from the life he knew, from the name he carried, into the wilderness. The land stretched wide before him, quiet, empty, still. No walls, no crowds, no identity, just sand, sky, and silence. And there, in the quiet, his story was not ending. It was only beginning. The river had carried him once. Now the wilderness would shape him. And somewhere beyond what he could see, God was already waiting, from the wilderness to the call. The wilderness was quiet. Days stretched along, and nights felt even longer. The wind moved softly across the land, carrying dust, carrying silence. And Moses walked within it. No palace, no title, no certainty. Only the sound of his footsteps and the slow rhythm of a life that had changed. He came to a place called Midian, and there, by a well, he sat down, resting, waiting, breathing. Not far from him, a group of women approached the water. They carried buckets, their steps steady, familiar. They came to draw water for their father's flock. But as they worked, others came, shepherds, rough, impatient. They pushed the women aside, their voices loud, their presence heavy. The water was taken from them, and the women stepped back, silently. Moses watched. For a moment, he said nothing, but something in him stirred again, that same quiet pull toward what is right. He stood, and this time his strength was not hidden in anger, but guided by courage. He stepped forward, and he helped them. The shepherds moved away, the water was given back, and the flock drank in peace. The women returned home earlier than usual. Their father looked at them, surprised. "How is it that you have come so soon today?" They answered gently, "An Egyptian delivered us from the shepherds, and even drew water for us, and watered the flock." "Where is he?" their father asked. "Why have you left him? Call him, that he may eat bread." And so Moses came. He sat at their table, not as a prince, but as a stranger, welcomed in. Time passed. Days became months, and months became years. Moses stayed. He was given a home, a place to belong. He married, and his life settled into something quiet, steady, unseen. He became a shepherd, leading sheep across open land, learning the rhythm of stillness, learning patience, learning how to walk slowly. Far from Egypt, far from who he used to be. And while Moses lived in the quiet, back in Egypt, the cries of the people rose. The weight of their suffering had not lifted. The burden had only grown heavier. And their voices reached upward, through the dust, through the pain, and God heard them. One day, Moses led the flock to the far side of the wilderness, to a mountain, a place still and untouched. And there, something caught his eye. A bush, burning, flames rising gently, flickering in the dry air. And yet, The bush was not consumed. It remained whole, alive within the fire. Moses slowed his steps. "I will turn aside and see this great sight." He moved closer, one step, then another, drawn in by something he did not understand. And then, a voice, soft yet powerful, calling from within the flame, "Moses, Moses." He stopped, his breath caught, and he answered, "Here I am." "Do not come closer," the voice said. "Take off your sandals, for the place where you stand is holy ground." Moses lowered himself. His hands moved slowly. He removed his sandals and stood there, barefoot, before something sacred. "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." And Moses hid his face. He could not look. The moment was too holy, too overwhelming, too full. "I have seen the suffering of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cry. I know their pain, and I have come down to deliver them." The words settled into the air, deep, steady, unshaken. "And now I am sending you." Silence. Moses did not move. His heart began to race. His thoughts began to rise. Uncertainty, fear, questions. "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh?" he whispered. "Who am I that I should bring them out?" The fire continued to burn, steady, unchanging. "I will be with you." Those words, simple, quiet, yet stronger than anything Moses had ever known. "But what if they ask me who sent me?" Moses said. "What shall I say?" And the voice answered, "I am who I am. Say this to the people, I am has sent me to you." The wind moved gently around him. The ground beneath his feet felt different now, alive. Still, Moses hesitated. His voice softened again. "I am not eloquent. I am slow of speech." "Who made your mouth?" the voice replied. "Is it not I? Now go, and I will help you speak." And still, Moses stood in the tension, between fear and calling, between who he was and who he was being asked to become. At last, he lowered his head, and the moment shifted. The fire still burned, but something inside Moses had begun to awaken. He turned, slowly, quietly, and began the journey back. Back toward Egypt, back toward the place he once fled. But this time, he was not running. He carried something within him now, a calling, a presence, a quiet strength that did not come from himself. The wilderness behind him, the unknown ahead, and the voice of God still echoing in his heart. Moses. And he walked. The journey back to Egypt was long. Each step carried memory of a place once left behind, of a past not yet forgotten. The desert stretched behind him now, and ahead lay the land he once fled. But this time, he did not walk alone. When Moses arrived, the air felt heavy, familiar, yet distant. The streets, the people, the silence. Everything had remained, and yet everything felt different. He found his brother, Aaron, and together they stood, two men chosen for something greater than themselves. They went to the elders of Israel, and Moses spoke, not loudly, not with pride, but with a quiet certainty. "The God of your fathers has seen you. He has heard your cries. He is coming to deliver you." Aaron spoke the words, and Moses showed the signs. And slowly, hope began to rise. Like light breaking through a long night, the people bowed their heads and worshipped. But the path ahead would not be easy. Moses and Aaron walked toward the palace, toward Pharaoh, the same place where Moses had once lived. Now he entered it differently, not as a prince, but as one sent. They stood before Pharaoh, still, steady, and Moses spoke, "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness." Pharaoh's eyes hardened, his voice cold. "Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice? I do not know this God, and I will not let Israel go." The words fell heavy into the room. And just like that, the tension grew. Pharaoh did not soften. He did not listen. Instead, he made things harder. The burden on the people increased. The work grew heavier. The days grew longer. And the hope they had just begun to feel felt distant again. The people turned, their voices filled with pain. "You have made our lives worse. You have given them reason to hurt us more." And Moses stood there, feeling the weight of it all, the calling, the resistance, the doubt. And he turned back to God. "Why?" he whispered. "Why have you sent me if things only become harder?" And the answer came steady, unshaken. "Now you will see what I will do." And so it began. Moses stood again before Pharaoh, Aaron at his side, the room still, watching. Aaron cast down his staff, and it became a serpent, a sign, a moment. But Pharaoh called his own men, and they did the same. The moment passed, and Pharaoh's heart remained firm. Then Moses lifted his hand over the waters of Egypt. The river flowed as it always had, until it changed. The water turned to blood, dark, still, unclean. The fish died. The river smelled of death, and the people could not drink. Days passed, but Pharaoh did not move. Then came frogs. They filled the land, the homes, the beds, the streets, everywhere. The sound of them, constant, overwhelming. "Pray for me," Pharaoh said at last. "Take them away, and I will let the people go." And Moses prayed, and the frogs left. But when relief came, Pharaoh's heart changed again. Then came gnats, small, relentless, covering man and beast alike. The dust itself seemed to rise against them. Still, Pharaoh stood firm. Then flies, swarms, thick, unending, filling every space, except where the people of Israel lived. There was peace, a quiet difference unseen before. "Go," Pharaoh said, "offer your sacrifice, but stay in the land." But Moses did not move from what was asked of him. "No," he said softly, "we must go, as we have been told." Again the flies were taken away, and again Pharaoh hardened his heart. Then the livestock fell ill, horses, cattle, sheep. The fields grew quiet, yet the animals of Israel remained untouched. Still, Pharaoh did not yield. Then came boils, painful, deep, visible, upon every Egyptian. Even the magicians could not stand before Moses. The land felt heavy, the air thick with suffering. Then Moses raised his hand once more, and the sky responded,
thunder, loud, shaking the earth, hail falling like stones from above, breaking trees, striking the ground, destroying everything in its path. But where Israel lived, there was calm. "Enough," Pharaoh said. "I have sinned this time. Pray, and I will let you go." And the storm ceased. The sky cleared. The silence returned. But again, Pharaoh's heart turned back. Then came locusts, covering the land, eating what little remained, leaving nothing behind. The earth looked bare, empty, still. And again Pharaoh called for Moses, and again he promised, and again he changed. Then came darkness, not just night, but a darkness that could be felt, thick, heavy, unmoving. For 3 days no one moved, no one saw one another. But in the homes of Israel there was light. Pharaoh called once more. "Go," he said, "but leave your flocks behind." "No," Moses answered quietly, "we will go with everything." And then Pharaoh's voice rose. "Leave me, do not return, for the day you see my face again, you shall die." Moses stood still, calm, unshaken. "You have spoken well," he said. "I will not see your face again." And with that, he turned and walked away. The palace behind him, the tension still in the air, the story not yet finished. But something had shifted. Something deeper than signs, deeper than plagues, deeper than resistance. The moment of freedom was drawing near.
Heavy, quiet, waiting, as if the land itself knew something was about to happen. Moses walked among the people of Israel. His voice was calm, steady, but there was a weight in his eyes. "This night," he said softly, "will not be like the others." In every home, a lamb was chosen, small, without blemish, kept close, watched carefully until the time came. As evening fell, the light faded gently from the sky, and in each home there was movement, quiet, intentional, sacred. The lamb was prepared, its blood placed carefully on the doorposts, on the frames of each house. A sign, a covering. Inside, families gathered, close together, no one wondering, no one alone. They ate in readiness, sandals on their feet, staffs in their hands, bags prepared, hearts beating softly with anticipation. "Do not wait," Moses has said. "Be ready." And so they were. Outside, the nights grew still. So still, it almost felt like silence had a sound. And then it moved. Through the land of Egypt, from house to house, from place to place, something unseen, something final passed through. And in every home where there was no covering, there was loss. A cry rose into the night, deep, piercing, unrestrained. It echoed through the streets, through the palace, through every corner of the land. But in the homes of Israel, there was stillness, peace. The mark on the door held. The night felt long, but it did not last forever. Before the morning had fully come, a message arrived. Urgent, unshaken. Pharaoh had spoken. "Go. Rise up and leave. Take your people, your children, your flocks, and go. Serve your God." There was no delay, no hesitation. The people moved, quickly, quietly, together. They gathered what they had: wrapped their bread before it could rise, carried what they could hold, and stepped forward. Neighbors watched, some in silence, some in awe, some with trembling hands, offering silver, gold, clothing, as if releasing something they could no longer keep. And the people of Israel walked out. Not in chaos, not in fear, but in a quiet, steady movement, like a river finally set free. Families stayed close, children held tightly, feet moving step by step, away from what had held them for so long. Behind them, Egypt, the land of their suffering, the place of their waiting, the years of their silence. Before them, the unknown. The sky slowly softened as morning began to rise, light touching the ground, gently, slowly, as if welcoming them forward. Moses walked among them, not ahead, not above, but with them. The same man once hidden in a basket, now walking beside a people being carried into freedom. No one rushed, no one turned back, only forward. And though the path was not yet clear, though the journey had only begun, there was something new in the air. Not fear, not burden, but freedom, quiet, unfamiliar, but real. And as they walked, step by step, into a land they had never seen, they carried with them more than what their hands could hold. They carried a promise. And the story was still unfolding.
The people walked on, step by step, family by family, carrying what they had and leaving behind what they knew. The land stretched wide before them, open, unfamiliar, quiet. By day, a cloud moved ahead of them, soft, steady, guiding. And by night, a fire, a gentle light in the darkness, flickering, leading the way. They followed, not always understanding, but moving, one step at a time. Days passed. The distance between them and Egypt grew, but behind them, something had begun to change. Pharaoh woke to silence. The land felt empty. The work had stopped. The people were gone. And his heart turned again. "What have we done?" he said. "Why have we let them go?" The decision came quickly. Chariots were prepared, horses gathered, men called forward, and the ground began to shake as Egypt moved again, but this time not to hold them, but to bring them back. Ahead, the people of Israel reached the edge of the sea, wide, endless, still. The water stretched out before them with no path through, and behind them, dust rose into the sky, the sound of chariots growing closer, louder, closer. Fear moved through the people like a wave. They turned, they saw Egypt coming, and their voices rose, trembling, overwhelmed. "Why did you bring us here?" they said. "Was there no place for us in Egypt? It would have been better to stay, better to remain where we knew." The weight of fear returned. Moses stood still, the sea before him, the people behind him, the sound of pursuit drawing near. And he spoke, not loudly, but with a quiet strength. "Do not be afraid," he said. "Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again." The wind began to move, slowly at first, then stronger. The cloud that had led them shifted. It moved behind them, standing between them and Egypt. Darkness on one side, light on the other, and the night held them. Moses lifted his hand over the sea.
The wind grew stronger. The waters began to move, not crashing, not breaking, but parting. Slowly, a path appeared, dry ground where there had only been water, walls of the sea rising on both sides, still, held. Silence filled the moment, a quiet awe, a pause between fear and faith. Then they stepped forward, one by one, families moving together, feet touching ground that had never been walked before. Children held tightly, eyes wide, hearts steady and uncertain all at once. They walked between the waters, the sea standing still beside them as if held by an unseen hand. Through the night they moved, step by step, forward. Behind them, Egypt followed, chariots entering the path, horses pressing forward, the sound of pursuit returning again. But the ground beneath them shifted. The wheels slowed, the path no longer steady. Confusion filled the air. "Let us turn back," they said, "for something is fighting against us." Morning began to rise, light touching the sea, gently, quietly, as the last of Israel reached the other side. Moses stood again, at the edge, the waters still parted, the moment still held, and once more he lifted his hand, over the sea. The wind grew stronger, the waters began to move, not crashing, not breaking, but returning, flowing back into place, covering the path, closing over everything behind them, and the sea became whole again, as if it had never been parted at all. Silence followed. The people stood on the other side, safe, still, breathing. They turned. The sea stretched behind them now, no path, no trace, only water, calm and endless. And something shifted within them. Fear gave way to wonder. They had walked through the impossible, and now they stood in a place they had never been before. Free. The wind moved softly across the shore. The sky opened wide above them, and for the first time they could fully see it. Not the life they had left, but the life ahead. And Moses stood among them, quiet, still, watching, as a people once bound began to understand what it meant to be carried. The journey was not over, but something had changed forever. The sea had opened, and they had crossed, and the God who brought them out was still with them. The sea was now behind them, the sound of the waves distant, the memory of Egypt fading. Before them, the wilderness, wide, open, endless. They walked, day after day, under the warmth of the sun, under the quiet stretch of the sky. At first, there was stillness in their hearts, a soft joy, a quiet relief. They had crossed, they were free. But the wilderness was not easy. The days grew long. The land offered little, no rivers flowing beside them, no fields to gather from, only sand and stone and distance. And slowly, their voices began to change. "Why did we leave?" some whispered. "At least in Egypt we had food. At least we knew what tomorrow would bring." The memory of pain began to soften in their minds, and the uncertainty of now felt heavier. They grew thirsty, their lips dry, their steps slower, their bodies tired. They came to water, but when they tasted it, it was bitter, unfit to drink. Frustration rose. Voices lifted again, sharp, restless, weary. "What shall we drink?" Moses stood before the water, still, listening. Then he took what had been shown to him and cast it into the water. And slowly, the bitterness faded. The water became sweet, drinkable, enough, and they drank. They moved on, but hunger came next. Quiet at first, then louder. "We remember the food in Egypt," they said, "the bread, the meat. Now we have nothing." Their voices carried through the camp, heavy with longing. That night, as the darkness settled gently over the land, something moved across the ground, soft, unseen. And in the morning, when the light touched the earth, there it was, something fine like frost, resting on the ground. The people stepped closer, curious, uncertain. "What is it?" they asked one another. Moses spoke softly. "It is the bread given to you." They gathered it, each one just enough, no more, no less, and it sustained them. Day after day, morning after morning, it came, quietly, faithfully, enough for that day. And as the sun rose, they learned something new: to trust, not for everything at once, but for what was needed now. Still, the journey continued. There came a place where there was no water at all, none. The ground was dry, the air still, and the people grew restless again. "Why have you brought us here?" they cried. "Was it to let us thirst?" Their voices pressed in, heavy. Moses stood again, feeling the weight of their need. He turned and followed what had been placed in his heart. There was a rock, still, unmoving. He lifted his staff and struck it. For a moment, nothing. Then, water, flowing out, clear, steady, enough. And the people moved forward, drinking deeply, their thirst met. And the wilderness, though still wide, still quiet, no longer felt empty, because again and again, in the hunger, in the thirst, in the uncertainty, something had been given, not all at once, not far ahead, but right when it was needed. And slowly, step by step, their hearts began to learn that even here, in the middle of nowhere, they were not alone. The cloud still moved before them by day, the fire still rested with them by night, and Moses walked among them, not as a prince, not as someone above them, but as one who was learning, just like them, to follow, to trust, to walk forward without needing to see the whole path. And so they continued, through the quiet, through the unknown, carried, day by day.
The wilderness stretched on, day after day, step after step, until they came to a place unlike the others, a mountain, tall, still, reaching into the sky. They stopped there, at its base. The people rested, but the air felt different, quieter, heavier, as if the ground itself was holding something unseen. The cloud moved again, but this time it did not simply lead, it settled over the mountain, dark, thick, unmoving. Moses looked up, the peak hidden within the cloud, the silence deep and full. And then the voice came. "Tell the people to prepare. Set themselves apart. Be ready, for I will come down." The message moved through the camp, quiet but serious. The people washed their garments. They waited. They did not draw near. There was a boundary set around the mountain, a line not to be crossed, not in fear, but in reverence. And then
the morning came. The sky darkened, clouds gathered. Thunder rolled across the land, deep, echoing, alive. Lightning broke through the sky, bright, sudden, touching the mountain. The sound of a trumpet rose, long, loud, growing stronger, not fading, but increasing. The ground trembled, the mountain shook, and smoke rose like fire. The presence was there. The people stood at a distance, hearts racing, breath held, eyes wide. And Moses walked forward, into the cloud, into the place where the voice was. And the voice spoke, not softly this time, but with a weight that filled everything. Words that would not fade, words that would be carried far beyond that moment. I am the Lord your God. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an idol. You shall not take my name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day. Honor your father and your mother. You shall not kill. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness. You shall not covet. The words settled over the mountain, over the people, over the moment. Not just spoken, but felt. The people trembled. They stepped back. Do not let God speak to us directly, they said. We are afraid. But Moses remained, standing in the space between. Do not be afraid, he said gently. This has come so that your hearts may learn. And the mountain remained, covered in cloud, alive with presence. Days passed, and Moses stayed, higher up the mountain, closer, drawn deeper into the stillness. The noise below faded, the voices distant. Only the quiet remained, and the voice. And there, in that sacred place, something was written, not by human hands, not shaped by effort, but given. Stone, holding words, words that carried life. Time passed below. The people waited, then wondered, then grew restless. Where is he? They asked. What has become of him? The stillness they once held began to fade, and their hearts began to drift. But on the mountain, Moses remained, still, listening, receiving. Between heaven and earth, between silence and voice, between calling and becoming. And when the time would come, he would return, carrying something more than stone, carrying the weight of what had been given. And the story would continue.
Below the mountain, the people waited. At first, there was patience. They remembered the thunder, the fire, the voice. They remembered the fear and the wonder. But time passed. Days stretched longer. The mountain remained covered. Moses did not return. And slowly, the stillness turned into restlessness. Where is he? They began to ask. What has happened to him? The silence no longer felt peaceful. It felt empty. And in that space, their hearts began to drift. They gathered around Aaron, voices rising, pressing, urgent. Make us something we can see, something that will go before us. Aaron stood among them, the weight of their voices heavy. Bring me your gold, he said, the earrings, the pieces you carry. And they brought them, quickly, willingly. The gold was gathered, melted, shaped, and from it, a calf was formed, shining, still, lifeless, yet placed before them. This is your God, they said, the one who brought you out. And the sound of their voices changed. There was music now, movement, celebration. But it was not the same. Not the quiet awe from before. Not the stillness at the mountain. Something had shifted. Up on the mountain, Moses was still there, in the presence, in the quiet. And the voice spoke again. "Go down. The people have turned aside. They have forgotten." The words were steady, not rushed, but filled with truth. Moses stood, the moment heavy. He began to descend, step by step, down the mountain. In his hands, the stone, the words written upon them, given, sacred. As he came closer, the sound reached him. Not silence, not stillness, but noise. Voices raised, music, laughter, something unfamiliar. He paused, listened, and then he saw it. The calf. The people gathered around it, moving, celebrating, forgetting. The moment struck deep, and in a surge of grief, of fire, of heartbreak, Moses threw the stone from his hands. They shattered at the base of the mountain. The sound echoed, sharp, final. He stepped forward. The noise began to fade. The people saw him. The joy fell silent. Moses took the calf, ground it down, reduced it to dust, and the moment stood still. No music, no movement, only the weight of what had been done. Aaron stood nearby, quiet. Moses looked at him. "What happened here?" he asked. The question hung in the air. The people stood, uncertain, aware, and the weight of their choice settled over them. But the story did not end there. Moses turned again, back toward the mountain, back toward the place of the voice. He stepped forward, not with anger now, but with something deeper, intercession. "Forgive them," he said softly. "If not," the words faded into the silence. The moment held, and mercy began to move again. The next day, Moses returned to the people, his face quieter now, steady. The path ahead would not be easy. The trust once broken would take time. But the presence had not left. The cloud still rested. The fire still burned. And though they had fallen, they were not abandoned. Stone would be written again. The words would be given again. And slowly, step by step, they would learn again. To walk, to trust, to remember. And Moses stood among them, not perfect, not untouched, but chosen. And the story continued.